Playing to space. We all see a good through ball, a good ball over, and we say, how can we recreate those challenges in practice to get players to explore ways to find unique opportunities over and through? How can we manipulate the constraints of the task to give players ways to find that split ball to beat the defender? Play to space. Good morning, coaches. Today I'm going to be talking about a short session activity designed to challenge players to find unique ways of playing balls over or through. Typically in games, we'll find ourselves against opponents who might be mid-blocking, and there's huge amounts of space behind the back line, and we want to try to find ways to get to them, with diagonal balls, balls over, balls through. And a lot of times when we'll get into games, sometimes we find it challenging to find the right timing, the weight, or the angle of the pass. Or sometimes we might have players who might be really adept at those qualities, and we want to add a little bit of challenge for them. With this, we have a basic framework. We have a 5v5. We have yellow versus blue. Blue is moving in a southward direction and yellow into a northern direction. In this space right here, we effectively have a 3v3 plus 1, and then of course we have an attacking player on this side, a defensive player on this side, and we have this no-go zone. Meanwhile, a defensive player on this final line. So yellow is effectively trying to play a ball into this space so that this yellow player can run on and create a 1v1 against that end line player. And so what happens is we say, 3, 2, 1, go. And if this player is not being challenged, they could play a ball straight through into this space for this player to run onto. The challenge, however, is with this no-go zone, this player cannot touch the ball in this space, and as soon as the ball hits that no-go zone, this player can come off their line. So the challenge is if the ball is played too direct with too much weight and not as sharp of an angle, it's going to be too difficult for this player to be able to receive it and play that 1v1. So the challenge is, how can we find balls over or through? If it's going to be direct, it's going to have to be lofted or chipped. And if it's going to be played with weight, with pace, it's going to have to be at an angle such that this player can get onto it and be able to receive and move forwards into that 1v1. If, however, let's say, this player makes a short pass and then blue dispossesses the player, immediately blue can transfer across and, score for themselves. So if blue wins the ball in this box, they just have to get across the halfway or across the end line for them to score. And whoever scores maintains possession. So blue scores, everybody shifts over to this side, and we restart with blue in possession, and blue, meanwhile, can do the same thing. They try to work the ball over for their attacking player to create a 1v1 here against yellow. And so, the added variation that you can do is, let's say this ball gets played over chipped and this player runs onto it. This player can be added as a recovery defender to make it a 1v2 to try to increase the speed of play a bit. So, as you are thinking about ways to challenge your players to be able to move the ball back into space behind the defensive line, how can we think about different ways we can adapt and manipulate space with this no-go zone, with the width, with the depth of the play, and where we have our players positioned to challenge them to find different ways over and through. And finally, last little thought, depending on your team, there's other sub-principles, other habits that we could think about. Do we want to do it early? Do we want to play that ball quickly? Do we want to do it before the defense seems to be ready? Do we want to think really about trying to make a diagonal run? Do we want to think about going against the flow by playing wide and then cutting against the grain? How do we want to challenge our players to find space to play to space? Cheers.